Change is inevitable, but losing yourself is not. The strongest leaders aren't the ones who resist the shift, they're the ones who learn how to stay anchored while everything around them moves. Come on, let's go ahead and get started. I'm looking forward to an amazing conversation. Welcome to Transformation Station, the podcast where growth meets action and leadership becomes impact. I'm your host, Adrienne Benson, and today's episode is all about something every leader faces, but few talk about honestly. We're talking about the tension between change and stability. And today we're diving into what it really means to stay anchored in the shift. How to hold on to your values, your peace, your purpose when life, leadership, and identity are all evolving. Joining me today is the incredible DeChrishna Nolan, a leader whose journey reminds us all that transformation doesn't mean losing our foundation, it means strengthening it. Well, let me tell you a little bit about her. DeChrishna Nolan is a seasoned human resources officer with over 17 years of service in the U.S. Navy. Throughout her career, she's dedicated herself to finding, developing, and empowering both military and civilian talent. DeChrishna holds a bachelor's degree in science and a master's in juvenile justice from Prairie View A&M University, along with a master's in manpower systems analysis from the Naval Postgraduate School. I am so thrilled right now to welcome to Transformation Station DeChrishna Nolan. Welcome. We're so glad you're with us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, this is a conversation that I believe is very relevant, right? Because all of us find ourselves throughout life in the midst of shifts. So often, to Krishna, I have found that as leaders, we are told to just embrace the change, right? But so many times, nobody really talks about how to stay steady, how to stay sane in the process, right? When everything feels uncertain, our roles, our goals, our identity, I have found that that's when anchoring matters the most. So I want to start off by asking you this question. When you think about the shift in your own life or work, what moment or realization anchored you the most and why?
I think recently I've kind of come into this realization of me saying the things that I may have received 10, 20, 30 years ago, and now I'm giving it to others. Um, I realize like I am at that corner of my own shift.
Mhm.
That I've kind of I've endured those lessons, and now I can see those words a little differently and then apply them for somebody else. For instance, talking to my brother the other day, and I said, "Everyone is not your friend,"
Mm,
and I
mhm.
remember, back in the day, being little, being told that when I want to go play outside or go out with whoever, getting told everyone is not your friend, and I can only see those circumstances of the friend part, not getting to do stuff. But now that I've kind of shifted in my own life, I'm realizing that the people that I'm putting on my team matter, and the people that I'm not putting on my team matter just as much. And those teammates that I have created for myself is getting the journeys and the circumstances and the situations.
I love that. Fantastic. Here in Transformation Station, we always invite our listeners and our viewers to be able to just take some moments to pause and to reflect. And as the Krishna is talking to us, the question that we're looking at right now is what moment or realization anchors us most during a shift and why? And we invite you to go ahead and put it in the comments right now, put it in the chat. Tell us, because we're a leadership community. Krishna, as you were talking, right, and you were talking about teams and whether we have the opportunities or not to be able to choose who's on our team. And for myself as a leader, One of the moments or realizations that I came to that has been beneficial to me was realizing this one right here. Tell me if you can identify with it. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I just have to stay aligned, aligned with the mission, aligned with my values, aligned with the core. But I don't have to have all the answers. You know, when I first started out, I felt this pressure. I don't
Mm-hmm.
totally know where the pressure came from, but I felt this well, actually I can, right? So part of it came from um part of it came from what I felt was this need to control.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily control the people, but it was to control the situation and the narrative. I was, 'cause when I first started out as a leader, I was very fearful of not having the answer or not knowing what to do, as opposed to just embracing that space, right? But at some point, I realized, wait a minute, just because I'm the leader doesn't mean that I have to know everything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I just have to keep us focused. What is real? What is true? What's our goal? I don't know. Can you relate to that at all?
Yeah, one lessons that I had to teach a group of people. I gave them a whole bunch of questions, and I knew they did not know the answer.
Mhm,
But the pressure was for them to identify how to get to the answer. Like
mhm,
I wanted them to put more effort and to more concern in worrying about telling me how they would get to finding that answer. And I think that is just as important, if not more important, than the answer itself, because you can apply that to so much more.
absolutely, 1000%. Okay, so I have one more, one more that actually helped me throughout my career. Who I am hasn't changed, only where I am. In
Mm.
seasons of change, we often confuse transition with transformation. Come on now, let's talk, let's talk. Especially being in the military, right? We change places, duty stations, section all the time. And who we are doesn't need to change every time
Mhm.
we change, right? And in seasons of change and transition, we confuse transition with transformation. What do you think about that?
Yes. So in the even this leadership journey, I've often received people's words of wisdom saying that I got to be this particular way, or once I get to this point, I'm going to have to change. And in some essence, I thought that I'm going to have to change who I am in order to be a good leader. Now,
Mhm,
the good leaders broke it down to me, and they were simply saying that I have to just refine and be practice a little bit more discernment in how I execute who I am. But at the core of who I am, it's got to remain the same, because this is what's allowed me to be a good person, a good leader, a good friend, a family member for everybody around me.
I love that. And to our community that's watching right now, we want to ask you this question. Go ahead and reflect right now. What realization or truth has anchored you during change? And I want to invite you to go ahead and tell us in the chat, share with us what realization or truths anchor you when you find yourself in the midst of transition. So I want to ask you this next question, right? Many leaders feel unsteady during a change. What practices or beliefs help you to stay grounded when everything around you evolves?
Uh, to be honest, it's very, very simple. It's not philosophical. It is simply everything will be okay.
Hmm.
That has allowed me, it doesn't say that things are going to be smooth and great, and you're never going to hit the rocky road, because you're definitely in the rocky road while you're saying everything's going to be okay.
Mhm,
But it's always giving me that level of reassurance.
mhm,
It's kind of like giving that calmness, so I can see beyond the situation. I can see beyond the shift. I can see beyond it, and I know at the end of the day, one, the day got in, but
mm,
also that everything is going to be okay. And having kind of trust in that, it allows me to just keep moving.
mm. So how are you able to have trust in that? Let's talk about that.
It's a practice. It's kind of like a mantra that you have to continuously give your own self reassurance. We're so busy trying to reassure others and give them words of motivation. It is practicing my own self-motivation to get to the next step, to get to the next day, to get to the next task. Because if I don't believe my own words, nobody else is going to either.
Mm. This is really important. So, again, we want to ask those of you who are watching, share with us what helps you to stay grounded when everything around you evolves. For many of us, we are living in a very fast paced society. It doesn't matter whether you're in the military or not. And things are constantly shifting. And it's important that we have practices, daily habits, daily practices that help us to remember who we are and what is really true and to keep us at our core. So I want to give this invitation, right? Daily anchors, not random habits, create small rituals that remind you who you are before the world tells you who you are to be. And, I've had to throughout my career develop daily habits before I get to work, right? For me, depending on, where I am and how long my drive is into work, I get up in the morning and the first thing I do is I start off with gratitude. I'm just thankful to be alive, even if that day what I know is planned for the day is crazy, it's hectic, there's challenges that are coming. I want to start off with the morning prayer, morning reflection. I want to start off with 3 things that I'm grateful for. And then I usually put on my praise music and I'm driving into work and I'm singing a praise so that when I get there, I already have a shield. I already am armed with the mindset that I need to have as I go through the day. So having daily habits anchors us. Also, another one is staying connected or reconnecting with our core values. This can become our moral compass. You know, asking ourselves the question of what matters most, even if everything changes. When decisions align with our values, we may feel stretched, but we won't feel lost. And then here's one more, DeChrishna. Staying present, not perfect. I try to remind my staff every day, I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be present. I just need you to be progressive, right? And it goes back to that again, just showing up with honesty, showing up with curiosity, showing up with steadfastness. That helps us many times as we are walking through a shift. So let me ask you this question. What's a shift that you resisted at first that later became one of your biggest sources of growth?
To be honest, I think everything academically and career-wise has been a shift that I did not initially welcome.
Mm,
I thought that I was going to go to one school. A whole lot of circumstances happened, and I ended up at Prairie View. And at first, I thought this was not the path for me, and it turned out to be one of the biggest blessings
mm,
that still shapes me to this day.
mm,
When I joined the Navy, I thought I was going to be a social worker. I was going to help the lives. I ended up on a ship, and I was like, this is not the social work I thought it was going to be.
mm,
Um, but those years on the ship, one, the connections that I made,
mm,
but plus that resiliency, that skill set, that foundation that it gave me, it literally shaped me to be a good leader from all those experiences. So it's like at every path that I thought was going to be, there was
mhm,
a shift that I did not foresee coming.
mhm.
And they've all just kind of got me to this point that I just never expected.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your experience as a leader. I was thinking about this question and I decided to go ahead and kind of look up what are common shifts that most leaders resist that end up becoming sources of growth. So I want to talk through a few of these shifts with you. Okay. So, one, from control to trust.
Mm,
I kind of gave the illustration earlier of how when I first started out in my leadership career, I felt this need to control, right?
hmm
There had to be a shift in order for me to grow as a leader, to go from control to trust. And we want to invite every leader that's listening and watching right now to remember you don't have to hold every detail, every decision, every direction. Delegation is a part of the key of leadership, right? And
hmm
trust multiplies impact. Let me ask you, you're in HR. What have you seen as it pertains to a team that is able to trust their leader and the quality of work that comes out, as opposed to a team that is not able to trust a leader. And how have you navigated those waters throughout your career?
Um, I would say from my own personal experience, it's coming from having to be at the forefront of the leadership, leading the team,
Hmm.
um, and then having to step back and being led by other teammates,
Hmm.
or even new leadership coming in. And I think by me first, sometimes it will come as a shift that I did not welcome.
Hmm.
But once I kind of let go and see things from a different perspective, it allows me to be a follower even better, and allows my team that now was following along with me and beside me, it kind of reinstills just how important it is to one, let go. Okay, it's okay to go from control to stepping back, but also develop yourself as a follower as well as a leader.
I love that. I love that. So another one that I found was going from performance based to authenticity. And I think this can be a challenge, right? Because that kind of goes
Hmm.
back to identity, who we are, right? What we believe inherently about what we bring to the table. But many times we feel as leaders, or we're steered towards having to perform, right? The
Hmm.
metrics, mission, got to do, and you have to show up a certain way, right? In order to be respected. And at first, when you think about that word vulnerability, admitting that you don't have all the answers, making a mistake and owning the mistake with your team, right? At first, that vulnerability feels like weakness. But I
Hmm.
have found, I don't know about you, I found throughout the years as I have learned in my own leadership style that when I am vulnerable with my team, there's a way to be vulnerable without being a doormat where people are now walking over you, right? Hey guys, listen, I made a mistake here, but this is what we're gonna do to fix it, right? I own it,
Hmm.
you know, and people respect you, like you were saying earlier, when you don't sit there and try to act like you have all the answers, and you know everything, or when you try to sit there like you didn't make a mistake, or you start shifting the blame to somebody else. People actually respect you when you have that authenticity, and I would dare say that when we move away from performing and we allow ourselves to just be our authentic self, it's not about I enjoy my job, but you're living life and working on purpose, and it becomes more of an enjoyable experience. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yes, like I've definitely witnessed the people that were driven by the numbers. They were driven by what people will see, and then they lose good people because of that, because they have to keep that facade, or they had to drive the team towards something for others or to make this appearance, versus being a good leader and just caring for their people, making sure that they were okay. You know, if you take care of your people, they will take care of you. And so you will achieve so much more once you genuinely care about them, what's going on with their lives, how well they're doing, and everything for performance will take care of itself.
Absolutely, 1000%. Okay, so one more,
Hmm.
going from self reliance to community. You know what I've found over the years, right? That word leader, in most of our minds, we understand, right? You're leading something. But so many times leaders take that word to be self-reliance. I,
Hmm.
I. When I first came into the military, they had this mantra, there's no I in team. I don't know if you heard anybody say that. There's no I in team. When you're in boot camp, when you first started out, right? You're like, but really and truly, right? As leaders, yes, we are taught to be strong. We are taught to be independent, right? They put you in leadership positions because you have the mindset, you have the capability to be strong, to be dependent, to lead, right? But isolation, I don't know about you. I've seen so many leaders isolate themselves, right? It erodes vision, it erodes energy. And one of the invitations that somebody that I in my leadership gave me early on was, as you go through your career, walk with one hand forward and one hand backwards, right?
Okay.
One hand forward towards somebody who has already done what you're looking to do. Get a mentor. One hand behind you, pulling somebody else who has yet to accomplish or to get where you're at, pulling somebody else forward. So you get a mentor, you be a mentor. You get a mentor, you be a mentor, right? They said to me, you never in your career will ever get to the place where you have arrived. You may feel like,
Mhm.
oh man, I'm commander. Oh man, I'm admiral. That feels good, right? But you know what happens every time you get promoted, you're starting at the bottom of that rank in terms of experience, right? You got to now
Mhm.
figure it out, take that time to figure out what does it mean to be at this rank? What am I responsible for? And so we always we need to have a mentor. We need to be able to trust our peers. Community is very important, right? We have people that we work alongside. Trust the voices, create balance. It's not a weakness when we shift from self reliance to community. What do you think about that?
My own upbringing has made this one of the harder lessons for me to learn over time.
Mm,
I was raised that, if you take care of it, don't rely on others. You have to get things done if you want things done. And
mm,
so stepping in, it was natural for me to be like, okay, I got it. I'll take care of this. I'll take care of this. And my hardest lessons learned were, one, I became the most senior person with the secret, thinking that I got it, and I did not have it, and the results was catastrophic.
mm,
But also, I started to develop the natural reaction of when I got overwhelmed, I would kind of cave to myself. Like I figured I had to solve these problems to myself because I completely didn't realize I had a team around me to give some of this to, that I could kind of share in, and they could help pull me out. So it's taken me, and occasionally my natural reaction when things get overwhelming is to kind of cave back in. It's just to kind of try to figure things out on my own. And so it takes some conscious effort to kind of be like, no, 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 pick up the
mm,
phone, take somebody. There's people that have conquered this already. Like, why am I taking this on when it's been conquered?
hmm. So, to those of you who are watching and listening right now, all of our leaders, we want to ask ourselves these questions, right? What helps us to stay grounded when everything else around us is evolving? What are the shifts that we need to be able to make in our own leadership journey? So DeChrishna, transformation often requires letting go, right? We talked about the shifts, right? But but we need to let go of some things in the midst of making these shifts. What have you had to release in order to stay anchored as a leader in who you are becoming or who you were becoming?
The list is long.
Yeah.
Um, um, Largely people that, I mean, they were good people, but they're not the ones to feed into the path of where I need to go next. Like I can still communicate, we can still be cordial, still be nice, but I can't give a piece of myself, my time, my energy to them that
Mm,
same way. If I want to keep going, I realize sometimes they were my biggest unintentional hurdle.
okay.
Because I had to, one, minimize my achievements, minimize what I'm doing, minimize my problem, or I had to feed into theirs. So none of it was creating a healthy circle for me to progress.
I love that. So, Transformation Station, we ask you right now, right? In the process of transforming, becoming, what can you identify with right now that maybe it's time today you're being called to let go so that you can stay anchored, right? We're talking about anchored in the midst of change, anchored in the midst of transition, anchored in the midst of waiting. And one of the things that I had to let go of, DeKrishna, is old definitions of success. Sounds crazy, right? But, I grew up hearing from people what success was. And then I had to realize, as I have gone through 17 years of my military career, right, that that was their definition of success, which applied to the journey that they were on. But that does not relate to where I am. And, I've had to redefine what success looks like. Sometimes success is it's very particular to this season that we're in, right? We got to get through this fiscal year. this is what success looks like. Sometimes it's the bigger picture, right? And so we want to invite everybody right now to anchor yourself in purpose, again, not in performance, and ask yourself, what does success look like for where I am right now? Another one that I realized that I had to let go of is, here we go. I'm just going to be honest, the fear of being seen differently. I know that there are other leaders right now that can relate to this, right? The fear of being seen differently, it that could mean almost anything, whether it's your gender, whether it's your ethnicity, whether it's, everybody else on the team has more years of experience than you do, whatever the case may be. Many times as leaders, we don't want to seem different from everyone else, right? But I have found over the years that, again, going back to what we said earlier to Krishna about authenticity and integrity, when we stay true to who we are, that cancels out the fear. Fear, right, stands for false evidence appearing real, right? So many times we're
Yeah.
afraid of things that's not true and never will come to be, right? But when we stay anchored in authenticity and integrity, then we let go of those things and we create the space to be able to usher in the pathway towards success. One more. All right. The habit of overextending.
Mm.
No, I know that many leaders can relate to this one. What do you think about that one? What have you seen as far as the habit of overextending ourselves in leadership?
Was that pouring from an empty cup?
Mm,
Uh, yes, it is not until you are the one with anxiety, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're snapping at people, like you're doing things that is not you. And then the people around you that you have overpoured yourself and probably should not have are smiling and thriving and doing this, and they're running off the energy that you should have poured into yourself.
mm,
And for my own self, I've learned that there is a time that, yes, I absolutely need to take care of others. But if I am not doing step one of taking care of me, if I'm not identifying what's within my threshold, what I am capable of,
mm,
and it's okay to push yourself, but sometimes we got to realize, hey, I'm not going to be able to grow these wings tomorrow and fly.
mm.
We have to be real and honest with ourselves.
I love that. So then let me ask you this question. How do we know? How do we differentiate between holding on to stability and clinging to something that's actually keeping us stuck? Hmm.
I would say it's identifying what gives you genuine joy, genuine peace, genuine uh, positivity. So much we want to, touch and grab and do all this stuff and pour into ourselves, and it's not the genuine stuff for us. I use the
Mm,
example of like food.
mm,
People may want to cling to food, absorb, fill themselves with food. Is it because you generally like food to the point
right.
of recklessness, or
Mercy.
is it that you like new experiences, new cultures, new vibes, and so pour that into yourself,
Mm,
and that will lead to food. So it's finding those stuffs that truly fulfills you.
I love that. That's a really good example right there. I've found over the years that part of the key is asking, is this grounding me or is this gripping me? Right? If this is something that's holding me hostage, this is clearly not working, right? And to do something about it. If this is grounding me and helping me to stay sane, helping me to maintain my clarity and my peace, then okay, this is something that I need to continue, right? Because stability feels peaceful, clinging feels anxious. Man, I
Hmm.
listen, when I find myself in those seasons as a leader, when I am anxious, I'm overwhelmed, I'm frustrated, then I know, okay, wait, we got to take a training time out. Let's take a training time out and figure out what's going on here, because this is not who I want to be in the long term. I don't want to sustain this type of behavior at all, right? Stability supports growth, clinging avoids it. Stability gives strength to take the next step. Clinging keeps you in place because you're scared to move. So it's really important as leaders that we are able to identify when we are holding on for stability. I'm holding on because this is what works, or when we're clinging and it's not working. So as we turn the corner here on this really enlightening and defining conversation, I want to ask you this question. For our leaders who are listening and watching right now, and they're currently in the middle of transition, in the middle of a shift, they're scared, they're anxious, they're uncertain, or they're overwhelmed. What is a powerful way that you would recommend that we can anchor ourselves today? So, DeChrishna, are you still here?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. So, for those who are listening and watching and they're in the middle of a transition, what's one way, powerful way that a leader can anchor themselves starting today?
I would say find what works for you.
Mm,
Find where you are centered at best, and then embrace it. And I know, as you said, some people say that you're supposed to embrace the uncertainty. Uncertainty is definitely inevitable.
mhm,
The corners, the shifts, the change, those moments are definitely inevitable, but it's how you react, it's how you recover, it's how you decide to build that resiliency. So when those circumstances happen, it's natural in your toolbox, to once again to react, recover, and build.
I love that. I love that. And I want to add, just from my own personal experience, to come back to present, not the pressure. I have found that, so many times I will succumb to the pressure, but when I come back to the present, I'm able to re-anchor myself, right? The present, what is true about what I need right now. Maybe I need to stop and get some sleep. Maybe I
Mm,
just need to get up and go outside. Sometimes, we work in buildings with no windows, right? Sometimes I just need to get up and go outside, like walk out the door, get some fresh air. Okay, right? Sometimes it's all overwhelming and it's crashing and there's all these problems that are coming in. Sometimes I just need to stop and name five things that I can see, three things
mhm.
that I can hear, one thing that I'm grateful for right now. Sometimes I just have to remind myself, you know what? All this crazy is going on, but I'm safe in this moment. Whatever it is that can reconnect you back to purpose, reconnect us back to purpose, we need to definitely employ. Listen, this has been a really great conversation. I'm going to ask you off script, what is one final encouragement that you would give to a leader that's listening and watching that's in the midst of a transition right now? From your heart, 17 years of experience, what final word of encouragement would you share with us?
It is that everything will be okay. Like have trust in yourself, have faith in yourself, love yourself, be your own advocate. Still give yourself that constructive criticism to build and develop, but love yourself. Know your value. Fall in love with yourself so much that when these situations arise, you are your number one supporter, you are your number one advocate, you are telling yourself the stuff and the questions that you would have asked somebody else,
Mhm.
because that is the best reflection of, like, okay, well, what would I tell somebody else? Then you need to apply those same words to you. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's one thing to embrace, but it will be okay. Like, have faith in that and have faith in yourself, and know that it will be.
Absolutely, 1000%. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Transformation Station community. Wasn't this amazing? I know it was. And Krishna, I know that there are leaders that want to ask you some questions, right? So for those who want to reach out to you, maybe they want to share with you what has resonated with them from this conversation. What's the best way to be able to do so?
Well, I am available on LinkedIn, but honestly, they can Google, they can find me anywhere. I am always open and available.
Fantastic. Listen, thank you so much for joining us on Transformation Station. Hey, community, you see the link here on the screen. It's also in the description box. I want to invite you to go ahead and reach out to DeChrishna. Let her know that you heard this particular episode. Let her know what resonated with you and ask questions. She has a wealth of experience. All right, DeChrishna, thanks so much. It's been great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, listen, wasn't that an amazing conversation? Let me tell you, one of the things that came to me as I was talking was this: change will come. And when we're anchored in purpose, we can weather any shift. Now, if today's episode resonated with you, I want to invite you right now to go ahead and share this with a teammate, share this with someone in the leadership community. Don't keep it to yourself. And as a matter of fact, go ahead and subscribe right now to Transformation Station on your favorite podcast. Remember, this week we're talking about service and purpose. And tonight, later on today at 10 p.m. CET and 4 p.m. EST, we have another amazing podcast that's coming your way. Remember, transformation doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you choose to stay grounded while growing forward. So until next time, stay steady, stay rooted, and keep transforming from the inside out.